Imagine being born into a job you can never leave. Your social status, your community, even who you marry, decided before you've even entered the world. For centuries in parts of India, something we now call a caste system existed. The word caste comes from the Portuguese Casta, meaning breed, lineage, or race. Over thousands of years, it shaped the lives of millions of people across the Indian subcontinent. And the more I learned about it, the stranger it seemed, because it raises a bigger question. Why do we create systems that rank people? Systems that decide who has power and who doesn't? And how can systems like these last for centuries? To understand that, we need to go back to ancient India and to one of the most complex social systems humans have ever created. Imagine being born into a job you can never leave. Your social status, your community, even who you marry, decided before you've even entered the world. A few months ago, I was on a road trip with a friend, and somehow we ended up talking about the Indian caste system. He asked me, do you actually know what the caste system in India is? I thought I did. I assumed it was something about race. Something like apartheid in Africa or segregation in the United States. But when I found out what it really was, I was genuinely shocked. Firstly though, let's look at what makes us different. Humans are unusual creatures. Most animals live in small groups. A wolf pack might have 10 members, a troop of monkeys might have 30. But humans cooperate in millions, cities full of strangers, nations with hundreds of millions of people. People who you'll never meet and yet you still depend on each other. That kind of cooperation needs structure. Throughout history, societies have created ways of organizing people. Very often, that structure takes the form of hierarchy. Kings and peasants, nobles and commoners, rich and poor. Different societies built different systems. In medieval Europe, land and loyalty shaped the feudal order. In imperial China, power flowed through a vast bureaucratic class of scholar officials. In many modern societies, wealth has become one of the many ways people are ranked. But most hierarchies share one important feature. They allow movement. A soldier might rise in rank. A merchant might become wealthy. A family might improve its status over generations. In other words, these systems are flexible, but in parts of India, a different system slowly developed. One that was far more rigid. A system where social rules could become tied to something you could never change: your birth. Over centuries, the system became deeply embedded in society. Today, historians refer to it as the caste system. The word caste comes from the Portuguese Casta, meaning breed, lineage, or race. This was the word that Portuguese traders used in the 16th century when they first arrived in India. But over the years, it's been known by other names. Varna, the Sanskrit word for class or color, first described in ancient Hindu texts like the Rig Veda, well over 3,000 years ago. Jati, coming from the Sanskrit root jan, meaning to be born. The word literally means birth group or community you are born into. And to understand how it began, we need to travel back more than 3,000 years to early civilizations of the Indian subcontinent. During this period, societies across the world began organizing themselves into structured communities. Agriculture was expanding, cities were forming, and social rules were becoming more defined. In many places, these roles were shaped by power or wealth. In ancient Egypt, priests and rulers controlled religious and political life. In early China, kings governed through noble families and officials. And in many ancient societies, warriors formed the powerful elite. India developed its own way of organizing society. One of the earliest descriptions appears in ancient Hindu texts known as the Vedas. These texts divide society into 4 broad groups. These groups were called the Varnas. At the top were the Brahmins, priests and scholars responsible for religious rituals and learning. Next came the Kshatriyas, warriors and rulers responsible for protection and governance. Below them were the Vaishyas, traders, merchants, and agricultural producers. And finally the Shudras, laborers and service providers who supported the rest of society. But there was one more group, one that didn't quite fit into any other description. And we'll get back to them later on in the video. Over time, instead of 4 broad social groups, society began to divide into thousands of smaller communities called jatis. Each jati was associated with specific occupations, traditions, and marriage networks. A person was usually born into a jati, and they typically remained within it for life. This is where the caste system becomes something unique, not just a hierarchy of power, but a structure woven deeply into everyday life. To understand how caste worked in everyday life, imagine a child born in a small village centuries ago. Let's call him Arjun. Arjun is born into a family of metalworkers. For generations, his families belong to the same community. Their jati specializes in shaping tools and farming equipment. From a young age, Arjun begins learning the craft. Not because he chose it, but because this is what his family has always done. His neighbours belonged to other communities: farmers, weavers, priests, carpenters. Each group has its own traditions, its own responsibilities, and its own place within village life. When Arjun grows older, his path is largely expected. He will continue the work of his family, he will marry someone from his own community, and his children will likely follow the same path. Across India, millions of lives once followed similar patterns. Entire communities passed down occupations and traditions across generations. Other societies also had inherited status. In medieval Europe, noble families passed down lands and titles. In Japan, the samurai formed the hereditary warrior class. But the system that developed in India was different in scale. Instead of a few social classes, there were thousands of communities, each with its own identity, each passed down through birth. Over time, this web of communities formed what we now call the caste system, a social structure woven deeply into everyday life, one that shaped not just power or wealth, but the rhythms of daily existence. Structures like this rarely survive for centuries by force alone. Most systems built only on power eventually collapse. Empires fall, kings are overthrown, social orders change. Yet the caste system endured for a very long time. One reason is that it was reinforced by powerful ideas. In many traditions within Hindu philosophy, the universe is understood as an ordered system. Everything has its place, and everything has its duty. This idea is known as Dharma. Dharma can be understood as a person's responsibility within the larger order of the world. A ruler has a duty to govern, a teacher has a duty to educate, a farmer has a duty to cultivate the land. And according to traditional interpretations, each person was expected to fulfill the role they were born into. Closely connected to this idea is another concept: karma. Karma refers to the belief that a person's actions shape the circumstances of their future lives. In this view, life is part of a long cycle of rebirth, and one's position within society could be seen as connected to actions in their past lives. These ideas did not simply justify social roles, they helped frame them as part of a larger moral and cosmic order. For many people, fulfilling one's role was not just a social expectation, it was seen as a moral responsibility, something that maintained balance in the world. This doesn't mean that everyone accepted the system without question. Throughout Indian history, there were reformers, philosophers, and spiritual movements that challenged aspects of caste hierarchy. Teachings associated with traditions like Buddhism and later Bhakti movements emphasized spiritual equality and devotion over inherited status. Debates about hierarchy and social order were present even in ancient times. But despite criticism and reform movements, caste identities remained deeply embedded in many communities. Not simply as political structure, but as a social system embedded into everyday life. In this way, caste became something more than a hierarchy of power. It became a mold through which many people understood their place in the world. But not everybody fit this mold. Over time, the caste system became increasingly complex. Thousands of jatis spread across the Indian subcontinent, each with its own traditions, its own occupations, its own place in society. And not everyone fit neatly within this structure. Some communities were placed outside the hierarchy altogether. Historically, these groups were often referred to as the untouchables. But today, many prefer the term Dalits, meaning oppressed or broken. For centuries, Dalit communities were associated with occupations considered ritually impure, such as working with animal carcasses, cleaning waste, or tanning leather. Because of ideas surrounding ritual purity, these communities were often segregated from other groups. In many villages, Dalits lived in separate areas. Access to temples, wells, and public spaces could be restricted. Even physical contact with higher castes was sometimes avoided. These practices varied widely across regions and historical periods. But in many places, the social distance between communities became deeply entrenched. Other civilizations also created marginalized groups. In medieval Europe, certain professions were stigmatized. In Japan, communities known as the burakumin were historically associated with occupations considered impure. But the scale and persistence of caste-based exclusion in South Asia was unusually extensive. It became embedded not only in law and custom, but in everyday social interaction. Over time, millions of people lived within the structure, some within its hierarchy, others pushed beyond its boundaries. And like many long-lasting systems, caste was not static. It evolved, it was debated, and eventually it encountered the forces of the modern world. By the 19th century, the Indian subcontinent had come under the control of the British Empire. British administrators were fascinated by the complexity of Indian society. They encountered thousands of communities, different occupations, different customs, different social identities, and they tried to make sense of it all. One of the ways they did this was through census surveys. Beginning in the late 1800s, colonial officials attempted to classify and record the caste of millions of people across India. For the British, this seemed like a straightforward administrative task. They believed that by categorizing communities, they could better understand and govern the population. But Indian society didn't fit neatly into simple categories. Local identities were often fluid. Different regions used different names for communities, and the relationships between groups could vary from place to place. Yet the colonial census required something very specific. Each person needed to be placed into a fixed category. Over time, these classifications began to solidify identities that had once been more flexible. Communities were recorded in official documents. Rankings were debated. Social positions were formalized. Some historians argue that this process unintentionally hardened caste boundaries. What had once been a complex and sometimes fluid social landscape increasingly became a set of official categories. Categories that appeared in government records, legal documents, and administrative systems. In other words, the ancient social structure had now become entangled with the machinery of a modern state. And when India eventually moved towards independence in the 20th century, the question of caste had become impossible to ignore. By the early 20th century, the caste system had become one of the most debated social issues in India. Reformers, activists, and political leaders began questioning whether such a hierarchy could exist in a modern nation. One of the most important voices in this movement was Bhimrao Ramji Ambedkar. Ambedkar was born into a Dalit family in 1891. Growing up, he experienced the restrictions of caste firsthand. Despite these barriers, he pursued education with remarkable determination. He eventually studied at universities in the United States and Britain, and over time he became one of the most influential thinkers of modern India. Ambedkar argued that caste was not simply a social tradition. He believed it was a system that limited equality and opportunity. Throughout his life, he campaigned for the rights of marginalized communities and challenged the foundations of caste discrimination. When India gained independence in 1947, he played a central role in drafting the country's new constitution. The Constitution of India took a clear position. It banned discrimination based on caste. Untouchability was declared illegal, and the new government introduced policies designed to address historical inequalities. These policies, often known as reservation, set aside positions in education, government jobs, and political institutions for communities that had faced long-standing disadvantages. Supporters argue that these measures help correct centuries of exclusion. Critics sometimes debate how they should be implemented, but the broader goal has remained the same: to create a society where birth no longer determines a person's opportunities. Today, India is one of the world's largest democracies. Its cities are home to thriving industries, universities, and technological innovation. But caste identities haven't disappeared entirely. In many places, they still influence social networks, political alliances, and patterns of marriage. Like many long-standing social systems, caste has proven difficult to fully erase. Not because it exists only in laws or institutions, but because it's also lived within communities, traditions, and identities for generations. When my friend asked me that question on the road trip, I thought the answer would be simple. I assumed the caste system was just another form of racial division, but the deeper I looked into it, the more complex it became. Because caste isn't just a story about India. It's a story about how human societies organize themselves. Throughout history, people have built systems that rank individuals and assign them roles. The details change from place to place, but the underlying pattern appears again and again. The caste system stands out because it tied these roles so closely to birth. It created a structure that could shape entire lives before they even began, and for centuries that structure endured. Which raises a final question. If societies across history have repeatedly created hierarchies, what does that say about human nature? And are the systems we live within today really so different? A lot of work goes into putting this material together. I'd love for you to drop your thoughts about this topic in the comment section down below. Be sure to check out this video I made about the power of belief. And if you like this video, be sure to give it a like, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. Catch you on the next one.